Mafia boss left his pregnant wife in the freezing snow. His enemy saved her and changed everything. Drop a comment telling us which city you're watching from. And once the story ends, don't forget to rate it from 0 to 10. Oh, and make sure to follow our channel for more stories like this. Now, sit back and enjoy every detail. The color drained from Dante Castellari's face the moment he saw who was standing beside his pregnant wife. Luciano Genoves, the one man in Chicago he truly feared. The enemy he'd spent years trying to destroy. And Sienna, 7 months pregnant, abandoned in a blizzard just minutes ago, was climbing into his car. Step away from my wife. Dante's hand moved toward his weapon, but Luciano smiled like a man holding all the cards. Your wife? I just watched you throw her into the snow like garbage. What Dante didn't know was that everything he'd been told, every threat, every reason he'd used to justify abandoning the woman he loved was a lie. And the man who'd orchestrated it all, someone so close the betrayal would destroy him. Real quick, what time is it where you are right now? Drop your country and the time in the comments below. I love seeing this community span across the globe. And if you haven't subscribed yet, hit the subscribe button right now. We're building the ultimate Mafia romance community, and you don't want to be left out when the next story drops. Ice crystals bit into Sienna's exposed skin as she flattened herself against the weathered limestone. Her shaking fingers cradling the swell of her 7-month belly. Chicago's brutal winter showed no mercy, not to abandoned wives, not to unborn children, not to women whose entire world had just shattered like glass beneath a boot hill. 20 feet away, Dante Castellari circled his charcoal Mercedes like a caged panther. The phone welded to his ear as he snarled commands into the night. I don't give a damn what it costs you. His voice sliced through the howling wind with surgical precision. Trace the leak. Find out who knew about her existence. Someone talked. Each word carved another piece from Sienna's already bleeding heart. Even now, especially now, as he discarded her like ammunition that had outlived its usefulness, Dante worried about his criminal empire more than the woman carrying his child. The man who'd sworn he'd burn the world down for her had just proven those words were ash and smoke. Neither of them saw the shadow observing from across the desolate street. Someone who'd been tracking every move Dante made for the past month. Someone whose intervention was about to rewrite all their fates. 3 hours earlier, Sienna had been folding impossibly tiny clothes in their Gold Coast penthouse. Each soft cotton piece a promise of the future she'd naively believed was guaranteed. At 27, she'd convinced herself she was living a modern fairy tale with Dante Castellari, one of Chicago's most ruthless crime lords, disguised in Armani suits and old-world charm. The nursery walls gleamed in sage green, gender-neutral, because they'd agreed to let their baby surprise them. She'd spent the afternoon in boutiques on Michigan Avenue, choosing blankets soft enough for the most precious skin she'd never touched. The apartment's front door didn't just close, it detonated. Sienna's hands jerked, sending onesies cascading across the imported rug like snow. Dante stormed through the threshold, his normally immaculate appearance fractured. Tie loosened, jaw clenched hard enough to crack teeth, obsidian eyes blazing with something that looked dangerously close to panic. You have 30 minutes to pack essentials. No greeting, no explanation, just the cold efficiency of a man accustomed to being obeyed without question. Dante, what's going on? Sienna's palm found her stomach instinctively, as if she could shield her child from whatever storm was breaking over them. The Genovese family knows you exist, knows about the pregnancy. His delivery was clinical, surgical. My sources confirmed they're planning to leverage you against me. The temperature in the room plummeted despite the radiator's warmth. The Genovese organization had been trying to dismantle Dante's empire since before she'd met him. A blood feud spanning decades built on betrayals she'd never fully understood. Then we increase our security detail. Her voice remained steady, though her pulse hammered against her throat. We protect what's ours. No. The single syllable landed like a judge's gavel. You're leaving tonight. Leaving. The word tasted wrong in her mouth. Impossible. Dante, I'm 7 months pregnant with your child. Our child. That child will never be safe while it's connected to my name. He moved to the wall safe with movements too controlled, too deliberate. The only tell that something beneath his iron composure was fracturing. He extracted a manila envelope thick with cash. There's enough here to disappear completely. Start fresh somewhere they'll never think to look. The floor seemed to tilt beneath her feet. You're abandoning us. I'm protecting you the only way that works. But his eyes had already gone distant, disconnecting with the ruthless efficiency of a man severing a liability. No ties means no leverage. You understand strategy. We can fight this together. Desperation crept into her tone, and she hated herself for it. We can. There is no we anymore, Sienna. He straightened his cufflinks with mechanical precision, as if preparing for a board meeting rather than destroying his family. There can't be. Not if you want to survive. So that's it. Her laugh came out jagged, broken. 7 months of growing your heir, 2 years of building a life with you, and you're just done. You have 30 minutes. He checked his Rolex, a gift she'd given him for their first anniversary. After that, you're on your own. Now, Sienna stood in the savage cold outside their building, watching Dante continue his phone conversation as if she'd already ceased to exist. She'd managed to pack a single leather bag, grabbed the blood money he'd offered, and walked out of the only life she'd known since the day a dangerous man with a devastating smile had promised her forever. Affirmative. I've handled the situation. Dante's voice carried across the frozen air, each word a fresh betrayal. The liability has been neutralized. The liability. That's what she'd become. What their child had become. A problem solved, a risk eliminated. Sienna drew her wool coat tighter around her swollen body and forced herself to move one foot in front of the other away from the building where she'd foolishly believed she was building a home. She'd tried calling her sister in Phoenix, straight to voicemail. Her parents had cut all contact when she'd refused to leave Dante 2 years ago. For the first time in her adult life, she was utterly completely alone. Behind her, she registered Dante ending his call, heard the Mercedes door open. Some pathetic part of her still hoped he'd come after her, realize what he was throwing away, choose her over his empire. Instead, the engine growled to life. She watched his taillights vanish into the blizzard without even a moment's hesitation. That's when the midnight Bentley glided up beside her, silent as a predator. The tinted window descended, revealing a man who made her breath catch despite every alarm bell screaming in her head. He was devastating in the way dangerous things often are. Mid-30s with features carved from marble and slate-gray eyes that seemed to catalog every vulnerability she was desperately trying to hide. Sienna Castellari. His voice was dark honey over gravel, cultured with traces of something European she couldn't quite place. Interesting night for a walk. Do I know you? She managed to keep her voice level, though every instinct screamed that this man was exactly the kind of trouble Dante had just tried to protect her from. Not yet. He leaned forward slightly and she caught the scent of expensive cologne mixing with winter air. But I know what just happened and I know you need help whether you're ready to admit it or not. A car door slammed with enough force to shatter the moment. Sienna turned to see Dante had exited his Mercedes and was striding back toward them, his expression transforming from confusion to recognition to something that looked horrifyingly like terror. Luciano Genoves. The name left Dante's mouth like a curse and a prayer combined. The man in the Bentley smiled, but nothing about it touched those calculating eyes. Dante, what a coincidence running into you on such a memorable evening. Lovely weather for discarding pregnant wives, wouldn't you say? Every drop of blood in Sienna's body turned to ice. Genoves. This was Luciano Genoves, heir to the very crime family Dante claimed wanted to use her as leverage. The man Dante feared more than God, death, or damnation. Step away from my wife. Dante's hand drifted toward his jacket with practiced casualness that couldn't quite hide the weapon concealed there. Your wife? Luciano's laugh held genuine amusement beneath its dark edge. Strange definition of possession. Considering I just watched you throw her into a blizzard like yesterday's newspaper, I'd argue she's available for rescue. Dante advanced another step, but Luciano raised one elegant hand, and suddenly the empty street wasn't empty at all. Men materialized from shadows and doorways, their position strategic enough to make Sienna's tactical mind recognize a well-planned ambush. I wouldn't recommend it. Luciano's tone remained conversational, almost friendly. You're outnumbered, outmaneuvered, and you've lost any moral authority you might have claimed. Sienna found herself frozen between the two most lethal men in Chicago. Her racing heart sending adrenaline through her system that made the baby kick in protest. Sienna, get in the car. Dante's command carried the weight of his authority. The absolute expectation of obedience. Why? The question escaped before she could reconsider, her voice carrying farther than she'd intended in the quiet street. So you can discard me again the next time someone whispers a threat. Something shattered behind Dante's eyes. I was protecting you. You were protecting yourself. Luciano opened his door and stepped out with the fluid grace of someone utterly confident in his safety. He was taller than Dante, imposing in a way that felt deliberate rather than natural. But as he approached Sienna, his movements became careful, almost gentle, a predator proving he could choose not to attack. The real question, my dear, is what do you want? Sienna looked between them. Dante, who'd just proven that when fear crept in, his solution was abandonment. Luciano, whose very surname had been weaponized to justify her exile. I want the truth. Her voice steadied as she spoke, drawing strength from somewhere she hadn't known existed. I want to know if the Geneva's family was actually planning to hurt me. Luciano's smile sharpened into something predatory. We weren't. In fact, until approximately 4 hours ago, we had no idea you existed. That's impossible. Dante's certainty wavered, and Sienna watched uncertainty creep across his features for the first time since she'd known him. Is it? Luciano turned his attention to Dante with laser focus. Tell me, cousin, who provided this intelligence about supposed Genovese threats? The word cousin hit Sienna like a physical blow. These two were related. Julian, Dante whispered, and even from several feet away, Sienna saw realization dawn followed by horror. Julian, indeed. Luciano's matter-of-fact delivery made the revelation even more brutal. Your own blood feeding you fabrications designed to achieve exactly this result. Congratulations, Dante. You've played your part perfectly. The silence that followed felt heavy enough to collapse buildings. Sienna felt their child moving inside her as if responding to the tension saturating the frozen air. You're lying. Dante's voice lacked conviction, already knowing the truth. Am I? When did you last verify Julian's intelligence independently? Luciano moved closer to Sienna. Not touching, but his presence created a shield between her and Dante. When did you last question why your cousin was so eager to convince you that your pregnant wife represented a fatal vulnerability? Sienna watched her husband's world implode with the same devastating efficiency hers had imploded 3 hours earlier. But she felt no satisfaction, no vindication, only a hollow, aching grief for what they'd both lost to manipulation and fear. Even if what you're saying is true, she said quietly, drawing both men's attention. It doesn't change what you did, Dante. When you believed I was in danger, your first instinct wasn't to fight for me. It was to throw me away. Sienna. No. The word came out stronger, fueled by anger that felt clean and empowering. You made your choice. Now I'm making mine. She turned to Luciano, who observed her with something that resembled respect. If I come with you, what happens? You get answers. You get safety and you get the opportunity to decide what kind of future you want for yourself and your child. His voice gentled, became almost tender. I'm not asking for blind trust. I'm offering you options. Sienna looked back at Dante one final time. He looked destroyed, desperate. But that desperation came too late. Cost too much. I'm sorry, she said softly, but I can't build a life with someone who discards me the moment things become difficult. As she moved toward Luciano's Bentley, Dante surged forward. Sienna, please. I love you. Her hand paused on the door handle, and she met his eyes across the distance that suddenly felt like an ocean between them. Love isn't just words or feelings, Dante. It's choosing to stand together when fear tells you to run. It's protecting the people you love, not pushing them into the cold. She paused, letting the weight of her next words settle. You had a choice. You chose wrong. Luciano helped her into the car with careful respect, his touch appropriate and protective. As they pulled away from the curb, Sienna watched through the rear window as Dante stood alone in the falling snow, finally understanding the magnitude of what he'd destroyed. But for the first time in hours, she wasn't cataloging her losses. She was imagining possibilities. Luciano's Bentley cocooned her in leather warmth and subtle luxury that felt almost obscene after the bitter cold. Sienna found her muscles unclenching for the first time all evening, despite the surreal circumstances of seeking refuge with her husband's greatest enemy. You're not what I expected, she admitted, studying Luciano's profile in the shifting glow of passing streetlights. What did you expect? Genuine curiosity colored his question. A monster? Someone who delights in cruelty for its own sake? Everything Dante described the Genovese family to be. Sienna searched his expression for deception and found only calm intelligence. But you just saved me from freezing to death in a blizzard. Your husband possesses many strengths, but accurate character assessment isn't among them. Lutano's smile held traces of old bitterness. Though to be fair, I've never exactly corrected his misperceptions. Our family's mutual loathing has proved strategically useful. Why help me? Sienna cut through pleasantries to the question consuming her. Really? Luciano remained silent long enough that she thought he might not answer. When he finally spoke, his carefully controlled voice betrayed old wounds. 12 years ago, someone I trusted absolutely humiliated me. Left me standing alone while my world watched and whispered. I swore that night I'd never allow anyone to experience that particular flavor of powerlessness if I could prevent it. What happened? My arranged fiancé ran away with my closest friend the morning of our wedding. His laugh carried no humor. Left me at the altar in front of both families, every important player in our world. The scandal nearly destroyed my father's reputation and taught me that love and loyalty rarely occupy the same space. Unexpected sympathy bloomed in Sienna's chest. I'm sorry. Don't be. It forged me into who I needed to become. Luciano glanced at her, something almost gentle in his slate eyes. The question is, who are you going to become after tonight? Before Sienna could formulate an answer, Luciano's phone illuminated. He checked the screen and his expression shifted to something darker. It's him, he said, angling the phone so she could see Dante's name glowing accusingly. Your call whether I answer. Answer it. The boldness in her own voice surprised her. I want to hear what he has to say. Luciano activated the speaker and Dante's voice filled the confined space tight with barely restrained desperation. Genovese Castellari. Luciano's tone remained infuriatingly neutral. Missing something. You know exactly why I'm calling. The raw edge in Dante's voice could have cut glass. I want my wife back. Your wife? Luciano's eyebrow arched with theatrical precision. The one you abandoned in a snowstorm 7 months pregnant. She seems remarkably functional without you. This isn't a game, Luciano. She's carrying my child. Yes, I noticed her condition, which makes your behavior even more reprehensible. Steel entered Luciano's voice. What kind of man discards his pregnant wife based on unverified intelligence from a cousin with obvious motive to eliminate his competition? Silence stretched across the line. When Dante spoke again, confusion bled through his anger. You said Julian was feeding me lies. I said Julian was providing false intelligence designed to achieve exactly this outcome. Whether he's consciously lying or catastrophically incompetent is something you'll need to determine. Luciano's brutal honesty felt refreshing after years of Dante's careful obfuscation. But regardless of his motives, your first instinct was to throw away the woman, carrying your heir rather than fight for her. That says everything about your priorities. I was trying to protect her. You were trying to protect your empire. There's a difference. Luciano glanced at Sienna. She deserved better than being treated like a liability to be eliminated. Where is she? Is she safe? She's safe. She's warm. She's being treated with the care and respect she deserves. Luciano's voice softened fractionally. she's also listening to every word you're saying. Another pause, this one heavy enough to crush bones. Sienna. Dante's voice cracked around her name. Baby, are you there? Sienna closed her eyes against the unwanted surge of emotion. I'm here. I'm so sorry. God, Sienna, I'm so sorry. His words tumbled out in an uncharacteristic rush. I thought Julian showed me photographs, intelligence reports. I thought they were going to take you, hurt you, use our baby against me. So, you decided to hurt me first. Sienna kept her voice level despite the tears threatening. You decided our child was better off without a father than with one who might show vulnerability. I wasn't thinking clearly. I was terrified and you were terrified. So, you made me pay the price. Clean anger crystallized in Sienna's chest, empowering and clarifying. Do you have any idea what it felt like to watch you drive away? To realize that when things got difficult, your solution was to discard me like I meant nothing. Sienna, please come home. We can work through this. Home? The word tasted bitter. You mean the place you just threw me out of? The place where I'm apparently just a liability? You're not a liability. You're everything to me. Then why was it so easy to let me go? Things are getting intense. And trust us, it only escalates from here. Before we continue, show your support by liking this video and subscribing to Mafia Boss Universe. You won't want to miss what happens when the truth comes out. Dante's silence stretched so long, Sienna thought the call had dropped. When he finally spoke, his voice barely registered above a whisper. Because I'm a coward. Because I was so terrified of losing you that I pushed you away first. Luciano's eyebrows rose. This level of raw honesty from Dante Castellari was apparently unprecedented. Where are you taking her? Dante asked, some of his command returning. Somewhere she can think without pressure from either of us. Luciano's delivery remained factual, almost clinical. She's endured enough tonight. I need to see her, to talk to her properly. That's not my decision. Luciano looked to Sienna. It's hers. Sienna felt their child shift inside her as if reminding her what hung in the balance. Not tonight, she said finally, surprised by the firmness in her own voice. Tonight, I need space to think. But you'll consider it. Desperation crept back into Dante's tone. You'll consider talking to me. Sienna watched Chicago's lights blur past the Bentley's windows. I'll consider it, but Dante, if we talk, it happens as equals. Not as your property that you can discard when convenient. Anything. I'll do anything. Sienna. Luciano ended the call and studied her with an expression that might have been approval. How do you feel? Stronger than I did an hour ago. The truth of it surprised her. Good. Luciano's smile held traces of respect. Because you're going to need that strength for what comes next, which is finding out exactly how deep this betrayal goes and deciding what you're going to do about it. As they drove toward whatever refuge Luciano was providing, Sienna felt something she hadn't experienced in months, possibly years. Not power borrowed from being Dante Castellari's wife, but power that originated from somewhere inside herself. The woman who'd been thrown away in the snow was gone. In her place was someone far more dangerous. A woman who decided to stop being a pawn in other people's games. Luciano's safe house turned out to be an elegant brownstone in the Gold Coast. All warm wood and soft lighting that stood in stark contrast to the cold, modern lines of the penthouse she'd left. Mrs. Rosie, the silver-haired housekeeper, fussed over Sienna with chamomile tea and blankets soft enough to drown in, treating her pregnancy with the reverence it deserved. While Sienna settled into a wing-back chair near the crackling fireplace, Luciano worked at a sleek laptop, his fingers moving across the keyboard with practiced speed. What are you looking for? Sienna asked, cradling the warm mug between her palms. Evidence? Luciano didn't look up from the screen. If Julian's been feeding Dante fabricated intelligence, there will be a trail. Phone records, financial transactions, meetings with players who shouldn't be anywhere near Castellari business. Sienna observed him with growing curiosity, noting the intense focus that transformed his handsome features into something almost predatory. You genuinely believe his own cousin would betray him this completely? Family betrayals are the most common in our world. Luciano's voice carried the weight of experience. Blood doesn't guarantee loyalty. Sometimes it makes betrayal easier because trust is assumed rather than earned. That's a bleak perspective on family. It's a realistic perspective on power. He finally glanced up, slate eyes meeting hers. Julian's always been second in line for the Castellari Empire. Your pregnancy fundamentally altered that equation. Sienna frowned. How? Your child represents Dante's direct heir. Julian would go from potential successor to distant relation overnight. Luciano leaned back, his expression grim. That's powerful motivation for elimination. Elimination? Her hand moved instinctively to protect her belly. You mean not physical elimination? Political elimination? Luciano's clarification came quickly. If he could convince Dante that you and the baby represented fatal vulnerabilities, problems to be discarded. He paused, letting the implications settle. Julian would be back in line for succession. The calculated cruelty of it stole Sienna's breath. You're saying Julian manipulated Dante into abandoning his own child? I'm saying it's a strong possibility we need to investigate. Luciano's phone buzzed and his smile turned sharp as broken glass. And it appears we're about to get confirmation. What is it? My tech specialist found something interesting in Julian's phone records. Luciano turned the laptop toward her, displaying a series of highlighted numbers. 3 calls to a number registered to a known Brat VA operative, all within the past 10 days. Despite the fire's warmth, Sienna felt ice crystallize in her veins. The Bratva, the Russian organized crime syndicate, were enemies to both the Castellari and Genev's families. Why would Julian be communicating with the Russians? That's exactly what we're going to find out. Luciano stood with fluid purpose. But first, you need to make a choice about what? About how far you're willing to go for the truth. His gaze held hers, assessing. Because once we start unraveling this particular thread, there's no going back. Sienna thought about Dante's face when he'd realized he might have been manipulated. About the child growing inside her who deserved to know the truth about their father. About the life she'd been building that had been demolished by lies. I want the truth, she said, her voice steady and strong. All of it. Luciano's smile carried genuine pride. Then we're going to need backup. 2 hours later, Sienna found herself in Luciano's Bentley again. This time heading toward the Southside warehouses. Territory that belonged to neither Castellari nor Genev's. Making it neutral ground for the kind of conversation they were planning. Are you certain about this? Luciano asked as they pulled up to a nondescript building that looked abandoned from the street. Things could become dangerous. I'm certain, Sienna's voice held no uncertainty. I need to hear him admit what he did. The warehouse appeared derelict from the outside, but Luciano led her through a side entrance into a room that had clearly been prepared for their arrival. Julian Castellari sat secured to a chair in the center, looking defiant despite his vulnerable position. Julian was younger than Dante, maybe 30, with the same sharp Castellari features and dark coloring, but lacking his cousin's commanding presence. When he saw Sienna, his expression cycled through surprise, calculation, and something that might have been contempt. Well, Julian's voice dripped with false sympathy. The grieving widow. I heard Dante finally showed some sense about you. Did he? Sienna moved closer. Luciano a reassuring presence just behind her, or did someone manipulate him into that decision? Julian's smirk faltered fractionally. I don't know what you're talking about. Luciano stepped forward, placing a tablet on the table in front of Julian with deliberate care. Phone records. 3 calls to Alex Clav in the past 10 days. Care to explain? Color drained from Julian's face like water from a shattered glass. Those calls were business-related. What kind of business does a Castellari heir have with Bratva operations? Luciano's voice dropped to something dangerous and quiet. Julian's eyes darted between Luciano and Sienna, trapped animal panic flickering beneath his attempted bravado. You can't prove anything. Actually, we can. Luciano swiped to another screen with theatrical precision. Bank records showing a transfer of $75,000 from a brothel company to your personal account dated 6 days ago. That's not what it looks like. It looks like you were paid handsomely to feed your cousin fabricated intelligence about Genevese threats against his wife. Luciano's matter-of-fact delivery made the betrayal even more brutal. It looks like you were paid to destroy his marriage and eliminate his heir. Before we see just how far this betrayal goes, take a second to like this video and subscribe to Mafia Boss Universe for more stories where family proves to be the most dangerous enemy of all. Julian's carefully constructed composure finally shattered like safety glass under pressure. You don't understand anything. His voice rose, defensive and desperate. Dante was getting weak, making catastrophically stupid decisions because of her. He jerked his chin towards Sienna with barely concealed contempt. The family needed strong leadership, not some lovesick fool who'd compromise everything for a woman. Rage flooded Sienna's system, clean and clarifying. So, you decided to destroy our family? I decided to save our family. Julian's voice climbed higher, losing control. Dante was going to get everyone killed with his weakness. That baby would have made him even more vulnerable, given our enemies more leverage against the organization. So, you fabricated intelligence about Genevese threats. Luciano's voice remained deadly calm, a stark contrast to Julian's spiral, manufactured a crisis designed to force Dante into abandoning her. I created a scenario that forced Dante to make the hard choice, to put the family first, where it should be. Sweat beaded on Julian's forehead despite the warehouse's chill. It would have worked perfectly if you hadn't interfered, Genevese. Sienna stepped closer to Julian, her voice low and absolutely lethal. You destroyed my marriage. You convinced my husband I was a liability. You are a liability, Julian snarled, all pretense of civility evaporating. Every moment Dante spends worrying about you is a moment he's not focused on the Empire. Every decision filtered through what's safe for Sienna is a decision that makes us weaker. You were turning him into exactly the kind of weak, emotional fool who gets everyone killed. The baby kicked hard inside her, as if protesting Julian's venom. Sienna felt something settle inside her. A cold absolute certainty. You're right about one thing, she said quietly. I did change Dante. I made him remember there are things worth protecting beyond power and territory. Things worth being vulnerable for. She paused, letting her words land with precision. And that terrified you, didn't it? Because if Dante could build something beyond the Empire, he didn't need you anymore. Julian's face contorted with fury. You, sanctimonious, enough. Luciano's single word cut through Julian's rage like a blade. You've confirmed everything we needed to know. What are you going to do? Julian's bravado crumbled, revealing genuine fear beneath. Kill me? Dante will come after you. I'm not going to do anything. Luciano's smile was cold enough to freeze blood. Sienna is. Both Julian and Sienna turned to stare at Luciano. What? Sienna's pulse hammered. He betrayed you, manipulated your husband, tried to eliminate your child's future. Luciano's gaze held hers, assessing and challenging simultaneously. The question is, what do you want done about it? The weight of that decision settled on Sienna's shoulders. In this world, in Dante's world that she'd been living in for 2 years, she knew what justice typically looked like. She also knew that whatever she chose in this moment would define who she was going to become. I want him to tell Dante the truth. Her voice came out steady, strong. I want him to confess every lie, every manipulation, every payment from the Bratva. And then she met Julian's terrified eyes without flinching. Then I want him gone from Dante's life and from our family permanently. You can't exile me. Julian struggled against his restraints. I'm a Castellari. The family will follow Dante's decision. Sienna moved closer, letting him see the steel that had been forged in the past few hours. And Dante will make his decision based on the truth you're going to tell him. Luciano's expression showed something that looked remarkably like respect. I'll arrange the meeting. As they walked back toward the Bentley, leaving Julian's panicked protests echoing in the warehouse, Sienna felt the shift inside herself. Not from victim to survivor, but from survivor to something more dangerous. Someone who understood power, who knew how to use it, who refused to ever be discarded again. You tried to steal my child's future. Sienna's voice cut through the warehouse like a blade honed on years of suppressed fury. You tried to erase their birthright. Your brat has no business inheriting anything. Julian's words came out vicious, desperate, the snarl of a cornered predator. You're nobody, nothing. A struggling artist who got lucky spreading her legs for the right man. I'm the woman who's going to ensure you pay for every lie. Ice crystallized in Sienna's tone, each word deliberate and devastating. I'm the mother of the true Castellari heir. And I'm the person who gets to watch Dante destroy you for your treason. As if her words had summoned him from the Chicago night itself. The warehouse door opened with deliberate slowness. Dante Castellari walked in, flanked by 4 men whose reputations preceded them, enforcers loyal beyond question, beyond bribery, beyond fear. His face had transformed into something carved from granite and cold fury as he absorbed the scene before him. His cousin secured to a chair. Evidence of betrayal spread across the table like autopsy photographs. The woman he loved standing strong instead of broken. Julian. Dante's voice came out quiet, which somehow made it infinitely more terrifying than shouting would have been. My own blood. Dante. Thank God. Julian's relief was palpable. Desperate. They kidnapped me. They're manufacturing evidence trying to. I heard everything. Dante's interruption landed with the finality of a coffin lid closing. Lot was gracious enough to call me once you finished confessing. Every drop of color drained from Julian's face, leaving him the gray-white of a corpse. You don't understand what I was trying to do. I was protecting the family. You were trying to steal from the family. Dante moved closer with the controlled precision of someone restraining volcanic rage. You attempted to eliminate my heir and demolish my marriage for your own advancement. She made you weak. Julian's composure finally shattered completely. She turned you into someone who makes decisions with his heart instead of his head. She made me human. Dante's voice dropped even lower, more dangerous. And you tried to weaponize that against me. You used my love for Sienna as a tool to destroy everything that matters. Sienna watched as Dante examined the evidence Luciano had compiled. Phone records, bank transfers, meeting logs with Bratva operatives. His expression darkened with each revelation, rage building behind his carefully controlled exterior. The Bratva? Dante's question carried deadly curiosity. $80,000 to feed me fabricated intelligence. They wanted to destabilize your organization from within. Luciano confirmed, his tone matter of fact. Julian made it remarkably easy for them. Dante nodded slowly, processing the full scope of the betrayal. Then his gaze found Sienna and something in his eyes cracked open. Raw, vulnerable, devastated. I'm sorry. The words sounded ripped from somewhere deep inside him. God, Sienna, I'm so sorry. I should have verified everything. I should have trusted you over everyone, over my own paranoia. You should have fought for us instead of discarding us. Sienna's response came gentler than she'd intended, her anger softening in the face of his genuine remorse. But I know that now. I'll spend whatever time I have left making this right, if you'll allow me. Dante's voice held a vulnerability she'd never heard before. However long it takes. Julian looked between them with mounting desperation. Dante, we can work through this. We're family. Blood. Family doesn't betray family. Dante's attention snapped back to his cousin with laser focus. Family doesn't attempt to destroy what matters most. He gestured to his men with subtle command. Take him to the waterfront. Make certain he comprehends the consequences of betraying the Castellari name. As Julian was hauled away, still protesting innocence, still claiming he'd acted in the family's best interest, Sienna felt something heavy lift from her chest. The truth had finally surfaced. The lies had been incinerated by evidence. But the question that mattered most still remained unanswered. What happened now? The warehouse fell into weighted silence after Julian's removal, leaving only Sienna, Dante, and Luciano in the echoing industrial space. The tension between the two men had shifted. evolved into something less about territorial dominance and more about the woman standing between them. The woman who'd proven she could survive without either of them. "Thank you." Dante directed the words toward Luciano, and Sienna could see how much the acknowledgement cost him. For protecting her, for uncovering the truth. Luciano's nod was curt, almost military. She deserved the truth. She deserved protection when you catastrophically failed to provide it. Dante flinched, but didn't argue the point. "I failed her in every way that mattered." Sienna observed the two most dangerous men in Chicago, both of whom had fundamentally altered her destiny in the past 6 hours. "I need to understand something," she said, her voice carrying clearly in the vast space. Both men turned toward her with immediate attention. "Luciano." She met his slate eyes directly. "When you found me tonight, was it genuinely about helping me or was it about hurting Dante?" Luciano considered her question with the careful honesty she'd come to expect from him. "When I first saw you on that street, freezing and alone, it was absolutely about hurting him. I won't insult you with lies." His gaze held hers without evasion. "But the moment I saw the pain in your eyes, the way you protected your belly even while shivering, it transformed into something else about ensuring you received what you deserved. Which is respect, protection, the opportunity to choose your own path." Luciano glanced at Dante, whether that path includes him or not. Dante stepped forward, his movements careful, as if approaching something precious and fragile. "Sienna, I understand I have no right to ask for anything, but please give me the chance to prove I can become the man you and our child deserve." "How?" Sienna's challenge rang clear. "How do you prove you won't discard us again the moment someone convinces you we're vulnerable?" "By never making decisions about us without you again." Dante's intensity radiated from every word. "By making you my true partner, not just my wife, not just the mother of my child, but my equal in everything. By demonstrating every single day that you and our baby matter more to me than any empire." "Words come easy, Dante." Sienna held her ground. "Actions require actual sacrifice." "Then let me show you with actions." Dante reached into his jacket and extracted a leather portfolio, laying it on the table between them. "These documents transfer 45% of all Castellari assets into your name, not a trust fund, not a conditional arrangement, full unrestricted ownership." Sienna stared at the papers as if they might detonate. 45%. You're carrying the Castellari air. You should possess the power that accompanies that responsibility. Dante's voice remained steady, certain. "This isn't about winning you back. This is about giving you the independence you should have always had." Luciano whistled low, genuine surprise coloring his tone. 45% of the Castellari empire. That makes you one of the most powerful women in Chicago. "I don't want power for power's sake." Sienna's voice remained quiet but absolute. "I want partnership. I want respect. I want the certainty that the man I love won't abandon me when things become terrifying. I will never abandon you again." Dante's vow came fierce, almost violent in its conviction. "I swear on my father's grave, on our child's future, on everything I am. I will never make that mistake again." Swearing isn't sufficient. Sienna's confidence grew with each word. "I need to witness change. Real, sustained, fundamental change. Tell me what you need from me." Dante's question held no defensiveness, only genuine desire to understand. Sienna felt their baby shift inside her as if encouraging her to speak her complete truth. "I need involvement in the business. Genuine involvement, not being sheltered from reality. I need to understand what threats we face so I can help make informed decisions about how to handle them." She paused, letting the weight of her next words build. "And I need you to work with Luciano, not against him." Both men looked stunned into silence. "Work with him." Dante's confusion was genuine. "Sienna, the rivalry between your families is precisely what Julian exploited against us." Sienna's tactical mind had been working through this since the warehouse. "If you're constantly at war with each other, you're vulnerable to manipulation from external forces. But if you formed an alliance," she let the implication hang, "we'd be unstoppable." Luciano finished her thought, understanding crystallizing in his expression. The Bratva, the smaller families. Everyone counts on the Castellari-Geneve's rivalry to maintain the balance of power. What if we shattered that balance? Sienna continued, her voice gaining strength. What if we built something stronger than what came before? Dante stared at her as if seeing her clearly for the first time. You're proposing an alliance between the Castellari and Genevieve families. I'm proposing evolution. Sienna's conviction radiated from every syllable. I'm proposing we build something that our child inherits, something stronger, more stable than constant warfare. Lutaniano remained quiet for a long moment. His tactical mind clearly assessing angles and implications. Then he smiled slowly, genuinely. She's absolutely brilliant. She is, Dante agreed, looking at Sienna with something approaching reverence, but an alliance between our families. It's unprecedented. It's never been done because no one ever had the right motivation before. Sienna held both their gazes. But now you do. You have a child who deserves to inherit a stronger empire, not one constantly bleeding from internal warfare. Dante extended his hand toward Luciano, the gesture heavy with historical significance. What do you say, Genevieve, ready to make history? Luciano studied the offered hand, then looked at Sienna with unmistakable respect. For her, for the future she's describing. He clasped Dante's hand firmly. Absolutely. As the two most powerful crime lords in Chicago shook hands, Sienna felt reality itself shifting around them. This transcended her marriage, her personal salvation. This was about fundamentally altering the landscape of organized crime in Chicago. If you're wondering how Sienna just changed the entire criminal underworld with one brilliant strategy, hit like and subscribe to Mafia Boss Universe. Because this woman's journey is far from over. There's one more thing, Sienna's voice cut through the momentous handshake. Both men turned toward her with immediate attention. Anything, Dante said without hesitation. I want Julian to face real consequences, not just family justice. Sienna's voice carried absolute conviction. Legal consequences. The authorities, Dante began, confusion evident. We'll provide everything they need to prosecute him for conspiracy, fraud, racketeering, and conspiracy with foreign criminal organizations. Luciano finished the thought, already several steps ahead. I have contacts in the FBI who would consider this case career-making. You'd turn him over to federal authorities. Dante looked genuinely surprised. Sienna, in our world, betrayal this deep requires public consequences. Sienna's tactical mind had already worked through the implications. If you simply eliminate him quietly, it sends the message that family can betray without real cost. But if he faces federal prosecution, she paused, letting them follow her logic. It demonstrates that betrayal has consequences that transcend family protection. Luciano's respect for her strategy showed clearly. It establishes that some lines once crossed void all traditional protections. Exactly. Sienna placed her hand on her belly, feeling their child move. Our baby deserves to inherit an empire built on actual principles. Loyalty, honor, protection of family. Julian violated all of it. Dante nodded slowly, understanding dawning. You're right. He didn't just betray me personally. He betrayed everything the Castellari name is supposed to represent. And we have more than enough evidence to bury him. Luciano's smile held dark satisfaction. The Bratva connections alone will keep him in federal prison for decades. As they prepared to leave the warehouse, Sienna felt their baby kick strongly, insistently, as if approving of the decisions being made. She was no longer the abandoned wife who'd been thrown into a blizzard. She'd become a woman who seized control of her own destiny and reshaped the world around her in the process. There's one more thing I need, she said as they reached the vehicles. Name it. Dante's response came immediately without reservation. Time. Sienna met his eyes directly. I need time to rebuild trust. Time to witness these changes becoming reality instead of just promises made in crisis. Dante's expression fell slightly, but he nodded with clear understanding. How much time? However long it takes. Sienna's voice gentled but remained firm. I'm not disappearing. I'm not taking our child away from you. But I'm also not returning to the way things were before tonight. Where will you stay? The question clearly pained him, but he asked it anyway. Sienna glanced at Luciano, who nodded his understanding. Luciano's offered me the guest house on his estate. Close enough for you to be involved, far enough for me to process everything. And our child will know both parents. Sienna's hand moved protectively over her belly. They'll grow up understanding that love is about choice, not possession, that strength comes from partnership, not control. As they stood in the warehouse parking lot, the three of them representing a completely new paradigm for organized crime in Chicago, Sienna felt something she hadn't experienced in months. Hope. Not just for her marriage, but for the kind of world her child would inherit. A world where strength derived from unity instead of division. Where love was protected instead of discarded. Where a woman's voice could reshape everything. 3 months later, Sienna stood in the nursery of Luciano's guest house, folding impossibly small clothes while observing Dante through the window as he assembled a crib with meticulous care. He visited every day now, not as a husband demanding his rights, but as a man earning his place back in their lives, one deliberate action at a time. The changes had been remarkable, undeniable. The Castellari-Genovese alliance had transformed Chicago's underworld, bringing a stability that benefited everyone except their enemies. Rival families had been forced to adapt or face unified opposition. The Bratva had retreated, their influence decimated. Julian awaited federal trial. His betrayal having unraveled a conspiracy involving 4 rival families and international criminal syndicates. The evidence Luciano had compiled proved devastating, comprehensive, irrefutable. But more importantly, more fundamentally, Dante had changed. He attended every prenatal appointment, not as the boss issuing commands, but as a partner, asking questions and learning alongside her. He'd restructured his entire organizations to include her input on strategic decisions. He'd kept his word about transparency with almost religious devotion. "How are you feeling today?" Luciano asked from the doorway, carrying a mug of the herbal tea Mrs. Rossi insisted benefited the baby's development. "Heavy, uncomfortable, ready to meet this little person." Sienna smiled, accepting the tea gratefully. "But good. Really genuinely good." Luciano had evolved into something like a brother over the past months. Protective but respectful. Supportive without being possessive. The friendship between him and Dante had surprised everyone, themselves most of all. Dante's still working on that crib. Luciano settled into the comfortable chair by the window with amused observation. "He's been at it for 4 hours. "I know." Sienna laughed softly. "It should have taken 45 minutes maximum. I think he's nervous about the baby arriving." "Are you nervous?" Sienna considered the question, turning it over carefully. "About the birth, a little; about being a mother, somewhat. About the future?" She paused, watching Dante through the window as he checked each bolt for the 4th time, terrified, excited, hopeful. "And about him? I love him." The truth came simply, without hesitation. "I never stopped loving him. But love alone isn't sufficient foundation for what we're building." "What else do you need?" "I need the certainty that when the next crisis arrives, and there will be a next crisis, his first instinct will be to turn toward me, not away from me." Sienna's hand moved to her belly as the baby kicked. "I need to know we're truly partners in everything." Luciano nodded, understanding without needing elaboration. Before Sienna could continue, Dante appeared in the doorway. His usually immaculate appearance pleasantly disheveled, hair mussed from working, expensive suit jacket discarded, sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms marked with dust from assembly. "The crib is ready," he announced with unmistakable pride. "Tested for safety, double-cheed for stability, positioned for optimal morning light, but minimal afternoon sun exposure." "You researched crib positioning?" Sienna's amusement showed clearly. "I researched everything." Dante ran a hand through his already chaotic hair. "Sleep patterns, feeding schedules, developmental milestones, safety protocols, temperature regulations, sound environments. I want to be prepared. I want to be the father this baby deserves. Luciano stood smoothly. I'll leave you two to talk. Sienna, call if you need anything. After Luciano departed, Dante moved to sit beside Sienna, his presence warm and achingly familiar despite the yuan months of distance. How are you feeling? About everything, he asked softly, his hand hovering near hers, but not quite touching. Still asking permission, still respecting her boundaries, like we're building something genuine, something that might actually last. Sienna turned to face him fully, like maybe we can make this work. I hope so. Vulnerability colored every word. I want that more than anything I've ever wanted. Dante's hand moved toward her belly, then stopped. May I? Sienna nodded and Dante placed his palm gently against her stomach. Almost immediately, their baby kicked as if recognizing their father's touch. Strong, Dante murmured, wonder transforming his features. Just like their mother, Sienna said with a soft smile. Just like both their parents. Dante looked up at her and she saw everything he'd become written in his eyes. Sienna, I understand. I still have work to do to earn your complete trust, but I want you to know these past 3 months have been the most important of my life. Why? Because they taught me who I actually want to be. Not just a boss, not just a powerful man feared by his enemies. Dante's voice intensified with absolute honesty. But a husband and father worthy of you and our child. I learned that real strength comes from protecting what you love, not controlling it. Sienna felt tears threatening, but they were good tears. Healing tears. I've learned things, too. Like what? Like I'm far stronger than I ever knew. Like I don't need you to be complete about it. But I want you to be part of the life I'm building. Sienna covered his hand with hers, their palms meeting over their child. Like love is a choice we make every single day, not just a feeling we experience passively. Are you ready? Dante's question held his entire heart. Ready to make that choice, to choose us again? Sienna looked into Dante's eyes, seeing the man he'd become over the past months. The man who'd restructured his empire to include her. The man who'd formed an unprecedented alliance because she'd suggested it. The man who'd spent 4 hours assembling a crib because he wanted everything perfect for their child. I'm ready, she said softly. But with conditions, anything. We do this as absolute equals, partners in everything, not just when it's convenient. Sienna's voice remained firm despite the emotion. And if you ever make a major decision about our family without consulting me again, I'm gone. No second chances, no explanations, no negotiations. Gone. Agreed. Dante leaned forward to kiss her forehead with reverent tenderness. Completely. Absolutely agreed. I love you, Sienna. I love you and our baby more than power, more than empire, more than my own life. I love you, too, Sienna whispered against his lips. All of you, the powerful man and the vulnerable one, the boss and the father-to-be. As they sat together in the nursery, surrounded by preparations for their child's arrival, Sienna felt profound peace settle into her bones. The woman who'd been thrown away in a blizzard was gone. In her place existed someone stronger, wiser, more powerful than she'd ever imagined possible. She hadn't just survived betrayal and abandonment. She'd transformed it into something beautiful. A stronger marriage, a powerful alliance, and a future where her child would inherit an empire built on love and partnership rather than fear and control. 2 weeks later, Sienna went into labor during a snowstorm, remarkably similar to the one that had changed her life months earlier. But this time, this crucial fundamental difference. Instead of being alone and abandoned, she was surrounded by love and unwavering support. Dante held her hand through every contraction, his presence steady and grounding. Luciano paced the hospital waiting room like an anxious uncle, his usual composure fractured by concern. Mrs. Rosie had prepared enough food to sustain the entire maternity ward through a siege. When baby Sophia Ranata Castellari finally arrived, screaming and perfect and absolutely beautiful, Sienna looked up at Dante's tear-streaked face and knew with absolute certainty they had truly found their way back to each other. She's perfect. Dante whispered, his voice thick with overwhelming emotion. She's ours, Sienna corrected softly, watching as Dante held their daughter for the first time with a tenderness that shattered and rebuilt her heart simultaneously. When Luciano was allowed in to meet his honorary niece, and as the three adults who had fundamentally reshaped Chicago's underworld cooped over the tiny baby who would inherit their legacy, Sienna reflected on the impossible journey that had brought them here. Sometimes being thrown away was just the beginning of discovering your true strength. Sometimes the worst betrayal led to the most beautiful transformation. And sometimes love really could conquer everything as long as it was built on respect, partnership, and the courage to choose each other every single day. If this dangerous love story captured your heart and showed you that sometimes being abandoned is the best thing that could happen, show your love by liking and subscribing to Mafia Boss Universe. We deliver powerful mafia romance stories that stay with you long after they end. 6 months later, Sienna stood in the Castellari Estates' nursery, her home now, their home. Watching Dante rock baby Sofia to sleep while humming an Italian lullaby his grandmother had taught him. The Castellari-Geneves alliance had become the most powerful force in Chicago. Their combined strength bringing an unprecedented era of stability. Smaller families had either joined the alliance or relocated to less dangerous territories. Julian had been convicted on 17 federal charges. He'd spend the next 30 years in federal prison, his name erased from the Castellari family tree as if he'd never existed. But more importantly, more fundamentally, Sienna and Dante had built something real, something lasting. He consulted her on every significant decision. She'd become his true partner, respected by every family in their organization. And when threats arose, because threats always arose in their world, they faced them together. "She's asleep," Dante whispered, carefully placing Sofia in her crib before moving to wrap his arms around Sienna from behind, just like her mother should be. "I was just thinking." Sienna leaned back against his chest, feeling his heart beat against her spine. "About what?" "About that night in the snow. About how being thrown away became the beginning of finding everything I never knew I needed." Dante's arms tightened around her. "I'm sorry." "I know." Sienna turned in his embrace, placing her finger against his lips. "And I've forgiven you, but I'm also grateful for what we built from those ashes. A partnership, an empire." Sienna smiled. "Our empire, one our daughter will inherit, knowing that strength comes from unity. That love requires choice, and that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is refuse to stay discarded." Dante kissed her then, deep and full of everything they'd survived and everything they'd built together. And as snow began to fall outside their window, gentle this time, beautiful instead of brutal, Sienna knew that their story had truly just begun. Because in their world, in the empire they were building, love wasn't a weakness. It was the most powerful weapon they possessed. Thank you for experiencing Sienna and Dante's journey from betrayal to triumph. If you loved this transformation, from abandoned wife to empowered queen, make sure you're subscribed to Mafia Boss Universe for more addictive mafia romance stories where danger and passion create something unforgettable. Hit that like button. Drop a comment telling us what you thought of Sienna's journey. And we'll see you in the next story where love conquers even the darkest underworld. Your participation means a lot to the channel. Please share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to our channel and leave a comment below letting us know what you thought. Your feedback and support mean a lot to us. Stay tuned for more exciting stories.